I hope everyone's having a good Thursday so far. I'll just give everyone a few moments to log in. You can turn your cameras on or off. You'll notice you'll come into the meeting muted, but today's meeting is very much an open forum, so feel free to unmute yourself or use the chat if you have any questions or thoughts throughout the meeting. Participation is more than welcome. We're here to exchange ideas. So welcome to our Montessori Town Hall. We host these every single Thursday as a space for Montessori school leaders to come together and discuss different school leadership topics. We usually ask around in our community groups. We have a Facebook group as well as a membership site that has a private leadership forum. What kind of topics would be helpful? And one that's really just been a big challenge for many schools is staffing, recruiting, and finding trained staff. And we understand that it can definitely be tricky to find trained staff in the Montessori space, especially if you're not in a big city. So we're going to offer a couple of recruiting tips as well as retention tips, because once you have someone on board on your team, you want to make sure that you have them on for longer. So let's go ahead and get started into the meeting. I just wanted to do a little quick overview. We'll definitely address the guide shortage. I know a lot of schools have been experiencing this. It's just harder than it has been in past years finding trained staff. I'll be sharing some tips on how you can utilize your school website as a recruiting tip, as a recruiting tool, because ultimately you own your school website. You don't have to pay to advertise roles on your school website. So it's a free way to advertise career opportunities. So it's definitely a great thing to do if you're actively looking to fill roles. Another thing is diversifying your recruitment channels. Where else can you recruit? You really have to be creative nowadays when it comes to finding candidates. Job descriptions, creating good job descriptions, leading with the benefits, things like that. The interviewing, hiring, and onboarding process, how you can make that a really clean and concise process and make the person feel welcomed. This will all play into retention. And then, of course, thinking long-term, how can you keep that staff member on and happy in your community? We'll definitely have time for Q&A at the end, but feel free to, again, use the chat or unmute yourself at any point in the meeting. I'll pause as well for conversation throughout. So welcome. Before we get started, I just wanted to take a moment for everyone to introduce themselves. You can use the chat or unmute yourself, where you're joining us from and why you joined today's meeting. Is staffing a challenge at your school? What particular challenges are you having when it comes to staffing? Feel free to share so that way we know where everybody's at. Barbara, joining us from New York. Awesome. Catskill Montessori. Welcome. Sarah from Crabapple. Hello. Staffing is a big challenge in the school, so I'm here to learn tips. You're definitely not alone. Okay. Here's something else coming in the chat. Aurora, hi, I'm Aurora from Montessori in Iowa. Staffing is our biggest challenge. Yep, staffing is a challenge due to remote location and lack of local trained people. Absolutely. Finding quality staffing, yes. It's definitely become more challenging, and it's something that I see all the time. Every time I go on community groups in the Montessori leadership space, there's always questions about staffing. How can I find the right guides? So let's talk about it. So first and foremost, let's recognize the challenges of staffing a Montessori school. Some of these may resonate. Training centers are few and far between. If you're an AMI school, you need AMI guides. If you're AMS, you could have either or if you don't have certification, perhaps you still require some sort of training for your guides. And it's sometimes difficult, especially if you're in a remote location, to find good training centers. Montessori training is also expensive, so not everyone is going to be able to afford that at this time. See here, Elizabeth, we're from Illinois. Finding young, excited teachers who are absolutely staying long-term. That's key. Another point, there are not really good online options for training in the Montessori space because it very much requires a lot of in-person work, a lot of observation, and really some time in the classroom just watching other experienced guides. So it's not something that someone can take an online course and walk into a classroom. It's also not as commonly accessible as something like a public school where everyone has experienced public school system. It's a little bit more intertwined with universities, and people that go into education will oftentimes end up in public education, although that's changing now. Again, yeah, many students who are interested in pursuing careers in education just may not know enough about Montessori to fully go into the training of it. So we have to be recruiting far before they're even at the point where they're looking for jobs. We have to plant the seeds of future Montessorians. Many students opt for those public schools, and also post-COVID, a lot of people are looking for flexible and hybrid work. This is not really something that we can accommodate very well in Montessori. We need those guides, assistants in the classrooms consistently, so we can't offer a work from home position. So it can be a little bit tricky. So we have to find other ways to provide benefits for our employees that aren't centered around a hybrid work model or flexibility. So what can we do? Recruiting great talent requires adaptability and strategy. There are many ways you can utilize online tools in order to find the right staff for your school. So first and foremost, I really want to inspire everyone who has a school website, which should be all of you, to utilize your school website as a recruitment tool. You should absolutely have a careers page on your website. If you don't, it's just a missed opportunity, because if there are any people that are interested in working in a Montessori that exists in your area, they're going to Google Montessori schools and they're going to look at the website and they're going to reach out. And it's great if you have a career page with a bunch of your openings. It just makes it a lot easier for those people to be like, oh, I can send in an application. So it's a great way to find those trained guides. You can include as much information as you'd like. There's no word count limit. I know for different job listing sites, such as Indeed or things like that, they might limit you. You can make edits easily and whenever on your own website. It's not like something, a third party like Indeed or something like that. Those seeking employment can really discover more about your school through your website. So if you have a great website that is really inspiring and that makes someone say, wow, I would love to work in a school like this, I can tell that, you know, they have a great reputation, they're servicing their community very well. So you can kind of impress them by just having a great website. And those seeking employment can also just apply automatically through your website, send you their resume and apply for the position easily. It just makes it so much more accessible. So let's talk about what a careers page really is. You want to have that landing page to entice visitors to learn more about your school and encourage them to apply. We'll be sharing some strategies on how you can lead them into pressing that application button. So as I said earlier, really your entire website is your careers page, because they're going to take a deep dive. Like, do I want to work here? Whenever you apply for any job, doesn't matter if it's your first job working at a retail shop or an ice cream shop, you're probably like, I like this business, or I can see myself working here, before you send in an application. So that goes as well for schools. So you can really take the time to improve your school website, and focus on creating a great mission statement, having your vision clear on your website, having your program descriptions. You never know who's out there in your town, in your city, who might be like, I really want to work with toddlers in the Montessori space, but I can't find a program that aligns with what I want to do. So by having great descriptions on your website, it can really help attract good talent. You really want to have a professional and vibrant feel and valuable content throughout. Remember that they also might even enroll. Oftentimes this happens. They're looking for to enroll their own child, and then who knows, maybe they're inspired enough to join your community. This has happened several times. So it's just great to have a good website. When it comes to your career page, you really want it to function like a landing page. It should build awareness of your school and the job opportunities available. You can follow SEO best practices, so your careers page will rank higher on search engines. This will increase awareness for school job seekers. So again, if you have a careers page, somebody who's Googling Montessori careers in your area, you're going to have a higher chance of just coming up on Google. And I can guarantee that someone who's really, looking for a career in Montessori, they're definitely Googling away. They're not just looking on LinkedIn or on Indeed. Promoting your page on social media as well, in ads, all of this can help broaden your audience and help more people discover your school. Plus, when you have a job listing and you have a direct link to your careers page, it's so seamless for the application to take place. You're not using a third party. You're not paying, a fee to post or advertise a job opening on Indeed. You just say, we have an opening here at, Montessori school, and here's a link to our career page. You can learn more about what it's like working here, what are the perks, and what, the position would entail. A great careers page also engages candidates. It should be able to stand alone. You should be able to captivate those visitors and provide all of the essential information that they are seeking. What are the hours? What are the requirements? What training is needed? Are there any perks? Are you offering training for those who are willing to do a 2-year commitment? All of this you can outline on your career page. Content should be inviting. It shouldn't be too overwhelming. You can go into the nitty-gritty of it when you're interviewing or perhaps later on in the hiring process, but you just want to get them excited about the role, excited about the school. Lead with why they should want to work with you. It should provide ways to connect. By including a call to action button that prompts candidates to easily apply for a position, you're going to see those higher conversion rates. So it should be a really easy 1, 2, 3, click, upload my resume, submit. It should be very simple for someone to apply, and then that should go straight into your inbox. You can use a CRM, a client relationship manager, or any automations on your website to make this happen. And again, it's easier because you don't have to log into Indeed. You don't have to pay for any type of job advertising. All of those candidates are coming directly from your website, which you're not paying any additional charges to advertise jobs on into your inbox. Any questions so far? I hope everyone here has a careers page on their website.
I was just also going to say, you're continuing?
Sorry, Camille, go ahead.
Well, I wasn't sure. Do you have any more to say about the careers page?
Just a couple things. I think the next point is that you own the platform, which we've covered. Again, it belongs to your school.
I'm just going to point out too that in addition to like the job description and everything that Camilla already said, it's a great idea to highlight the benefits of living in your area too. And because often people will be moving to take the job, not all the time, but you're kind of selling the whole, not only your Montessori school community, but your greater community as well as a place to live. So feel free to add, highlights of the benefits of living in your community.
Absolutely. Again, we can't always offer flexible working or a remote position, but what we can offer is a great community, a beautiful place, a beautiful town to live in. All of these things are benefits that you can lead in. So definitely be sure to include that. I think we're gonna, here, what to include in your actual careers page. I see here in the chat. Let me see, make sure. Barbara, and your ethos, especially with regards to community. Absolutely. Things like diversity or inclusion, or just a sense of, togetherness and a safe space. You can always include those things in your careers page. Just like Camille mentioned, it's important to really list the benefits and perks. Candidates value time and money. It's that simple. That's really what they're looking for. Is this job going to pay what is required of my work and time? And is it going to have any type of perks that I'm interested in? So just a couple of ideas of options that you can offer perhaps is things like a competitive salary, paid time off, obviously within reason. If you're a school, you need teachers there. Things like health insurance, if you have any options available in your state that are accessible, definitely look into those types of things. Retirement plan options, flexible working schedules. Maybe you have a 4-day week. I know some schools are changing to this, or maybe you have floaters. So, you know, the main teacher is off every Friday and you have a substitute in on a certain day. There's different approaches you can take. You can find something that works for your community and you can lead with that as a benefit. Training sponsorship, this often happens in Montessori. When we can't find trained guides, we have to pay for their training and then hire them on after. It's great to have a commitment, an employment commitment for that. So you can say, we'll pay for your training if you'll work for us for a minimum of 2 years afterwards. So you can offer that in your position as well. Things like professional development. So obviously, you know, if you're an AMI teacher, you need training or refresher courses regularly. I believe in the AMS community, you need something similar as well. Tuition discounts for children. So a lot of people who are looking for jobs in schools have young children, so you can offer discounts to employees. I know some schools even say, if you work here, you don't have to pay for your children at all, or you have a half off, whatever is reasonable for your community. Relocation benefits. Again, Camille mentioned, you know, highlighting the benefits of living in your community. And then you can also say, we'll help you cover some of the costs of moving if you're relocating for this job. And something like a signing bonus, or just, you know, you can say opportunities for a salary increase, a percentage per year. All of this you can advertise on your careers page or on your job listings. Is there anything else that comes to mind that you can share as a benefit? Feel free to share in the chat. These are just some ideas. It's good to get creative and also just take a look at what other schools are offering or other jobs and try to see what is reasonable for your community, because really you want to be offering benefits if you can't do something like flexible working, which we can't. And that's a big expectation post-COVID. You can list all of your open positions, make it easier for candidates to find that by listing that clearly on your page. You can write descriptions, and remember that it's a perspective of what you have to offer them. That's really what you should lead with the benefits. You know, obviously you want to be able to outline what is going to be involved with the role, but really lead with, this is what you're going to be getting when you work here. You're going to be part of a great community. You're going to get all of these perks. We do offer some flexibility here and there. You can list how is this job really going to go above and beyond for them. And if you have several openings, organize it to make it simple for candidates to browse and find roles that are going to fit their training and their background. Employee testimonials are also something you can add. You can ask your current staff what it's like to work there. This can be a powerful tool to recruit people. You can also encourage your staff to write testimonials on Glassdoor, which is a platform where employees go and rate working at businesses. Social proof works for trying to find parents to enroll at your school, as well as finding staff. So it's always an option. And also just having those clear calls to action, as I mentioned earlier, that button for automatic apply, having that seamless process to collect resumes and be able to contact candidates that appeal to you. And also, of course, the school location details. You want to make sure that you outline the benefits of your community, what is great about working where you are, what activities are available, events, everything that is open to those who live in your area. This is especially appealing for people who will have to relocate. School videos are also great. I'm sure that many of you already have this just to recruit parents for your community, but things like visual tours or staff member interviews, all of this can help with recruiting. Just give people a peek of what it's like to work there. Again, I mentioned this earlier, but mission, vision, and values, all of this. I know Barbara mentioned ethos. All of this is something that you want to be able to include. If you value community, teamwork, commitment to children, and a safe community, you can definitely outline this on your careers page as well. And finally, a workspace and day-to-day routine. Nowadays, people really are valuing work-life balance. So that's not always easy in the Montessori space, because very much so, we're always thinking about the children. We're always thinking about how we can better our community. But you can explain the routine, give an overview of your annual events, and be able to show what the classroom common spaces look like. just so that people see where they're working. We're lucky in Montessori that we have beautiful classrooms and environments. And that's a huge benefit for people who are looking to work in education. I just wanted to take a quick tour. I'll see if I can close out of our Nido site. This is our sample careers page. I'll link it in the chat as well. And this serves as kind of an example of what you could do with one. So feel free to explore. This is just a sample one. It's not a real careers page. These are not real openings. But you can see how we've outlined it. So feel free to take some inspiration from this. Again, you see here what we offer. We're leading with those benefits. So why would you want to work with us? Current openings, it's very easy to click and learn more. And a little bit about our community, show off how nice it is to live where you live. Maybe you have really, affordable housing, like the real estate value is great in your area, or you have great shops or great shopping centers or things like that, parks. Advertise that for sure. People value those things. Here we have a couple of testimonials, our mission and vision, and then apply now button. So we made it really easy. You can feel free to draw inspiration from this. I just wanted to show that. But definitely recruit on your website. It's a free space to recruit, so why not? Diversifying your recruitment channels. This is where when we're getting a little desperate and we really need a role to be filled quickly, you really have to get creative on getting the word out there and expanding your recruitment abilities. So where else can you recruit? First and foremost, publish job openings in local community newsletters. I know this is like the old-fashioned way. I'm not sure if people are looking through yellow pages or things like that, but it never hurts to just try to see where you can really post job openings. Also utilize NAMTA, AMI USA, and AMS. I know you can pay to advertise jobs, and those are going to be people who are usually trained or looking to at least receive training and are interested specifically in Montessori jobs. I recommend as well attending career fairs at local high schools, whether they're public schools or not, colleges, universities, and let people know that Montessori is an option for education. They don't have to go into the public school system unless they want to. There's other options. They can become Montessori teachers. What does that look like? You can set up a little table perhaps, or you can invite volunteers into your school. I also recommend scouting parents that dedicate a lot of time to your school community. When a parent really, you can tell that they just love Montessori, they feel passionate about it, and you feel like they would be a good fit for your community, you can kind of recruit them or invite them to maybe substitute and see if it's something that they would be interested in. I see a comment here, Barbara, montessorijobs.com, get Montessori jobs, teachmontessori.org, and also the local state alliance. Thank you, Barbara. These are all great tools. There's also a variety of Facebook groups available nowadays that I recommend taking a look at. One is called Montessori Jobs, LinkedIn as well. All of these are great. Yep, here, that was my next point here. Join a Montessori Facebook groups. You can get in touch with talent online. Also just look on LinkedIn, if people have experience in Montessori or interest and live in your area, you can look that up on LinkedIn and you can always send a message to them. I think with the free version of LinkedIn, you're limited to only a certain amount of messages a day, and you can only recruit with people that you have connected with, but you can always send a connect request if you see someone and you're like, who knows, maybe they'd be interested and they live locally, and send them a message. This is what recruiters do. This is the new norm, is reaching out to candidates actively. Again, as I mentioned, don't wait for applications to fall in your lap. If something is just not coming in, your inbox is empty when it comes to applications, go out there and actively recruit. Things on LinkedIn, join communities on Facebook, and see what you can do actively in your community in person as well to recruit new talent. Use social media to promote job openings, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, spread the word. You can draw them back to your careers page. You can even run social ads if you really start to get like, I need to fill this position. You can always run ads if you're looking for a Montessori job. There's loads of places that you can post about it. Any other ideas or anything that's been helpful? I see here in the chat. Any good Montessori Facebook groups you recommend directors to join? I recommend, well, first of all, Montessori Thrive, that's our leadership website, but that's not for recruiting. Montessori Jobs, it's just, if you search that in Facebook, that one is specifically for job listings and people who are looking for work. Also, there's one called Montessori Administrators. There's always great questions being asked. And a lot of conversation is being had around recruiting and hiring and staffing. So those are great groups. So Montessori Jobs and just Montessori. Barbara says also Facebook group for each of the levels is great. Yes, all of this. If you're looking for specifically a toddler guide or primary, you can look into that as well. Just join those groups and post. And yeah, maybe you'll reach somebody who's in a different state, but they're willing to relocate because they want to work in Montessori and you have a great community to join. So it's a little time consuming sometimes, but it's worth it if you can find the right staff.
Camilla?
Yes.
In your previous slides, I think one of the slides mentioned, you mentioned about going to high schools to try to recruit potential teachers and also the parents who might be spending a lot of time to see if they'll be interested in training. I mean, those are all good options if you have an opening coming up long term in 2 or 3 years' time, right? And because I mean, it does once, even if you find somebody, it'll take a while for them to. But typically, what happens in a school, I mean, it's a feast or famine, right? I mean, you have people. Sometime all of a sudden, I mean, you get a panic this thing on May. Yeah, I need a teacher for fall, right? Or sometime if somebody approaches you, you don't have any opening. So that becomes a challenge. And then quite often, I think when people are looking for a teacher, it's almost kind of on a semi-urgent basis.
Right. I mean, if you're, I think it's important for Montessori schools to be planting those seeds a little bit more so that in the future, we have a bigger pool of staff to pick from, because I think the shortage is because oftentimes people who would be great educators in the Montessori space may not have known about it and have gone into other fields of education. So that's definitely not a short-term solution. It's more of a long-term solution. If you're looking for a position to be filled immediately, I would definitely recommend other recruiting methods, but you can always use a combination. But I do think there's a lot of value in raising awareness about how great it is to work in Montessori. And it never hurts to reach out to your local high school and say, are you having a job fair or a college? And can we set up a table about, Montessori education? I'm sure, they'll consider it or they'll welcome you. And that will hopefully inspire, I don't know, maybe even if it's a handful of Montessori teachers, that'll be more for Montessori communities to pick from. Because I think the shortage really happens when people just don't know or don't have access to the training or aren't aware. So it's a combination of long-term and short-term solutions, I think.
My feeling is that I think when it comes to the shortage, dealing with the shortage of teachers, I feel that the AMI US has really dropped the ball. There's a lot they can do and they're not doing. One of the things they need to do is they need to reach out to the various universities, have some sort of a program where I think at least they can offer some courses on Montessori in terms of early education that teaches Montessori. I mean, you have to have linkages at a higher level nationwide so that at least people who are going to early childhood education become aware of Montessori and all that. So they're not doing that. And so there's a lot, and not only that, the second problem that we have is that I think this whole training program has to be revamped. They have done, I think, a little bit of that, but I think they have to do a lot more. They have to make it such that it's easy enough for them to do it, a lot of it online, and maybe a couple of weeks or 2 or 3 weeks on site max, because most people don't have the luxury. Many of them are parents who are interested. They can't just pack up and go for like 6 months or 3 months to do this. So I think they have to revamp the education program. They have to basically provide linkages. I think the only one that they have is there in Baltimore that they have something with one of the universities. They do a master's program. I think they're the only university I know that the linkage.
Is it Loyola?
Loyola, yes, exactly,
Yes.
exactly. But so it's a very it's a much broader and a complex problem. I mean, the thing is this, I think what you said in the website and all that, all wonderful. I think that helps you in case if somebody's looking for a job, basically zero in to your school. Problem is that people are just not available, period. And especially in Montessori, I think I find that it's rare that somebody will be willing to move, relocate, because of the fact that many, I mean, there are not too many young people who are basically single who can go anywhere. So we have to get from the local pool, right? If there's any teacher available. So anyway, it's a tough problem. I wish that the AMI US would help a little bit more in this area.
You're
Yeah.
definitely probably not alone in feeling that way.
I was just going to say, I agree with you, Wally, but just kind of go back to the kind of high school level and parents and things. I think what I know that we used to do at our school was to kind of always have someone in the pipeline. So if you hire an assistant, you know, which doesn't require as much training, but maybe there's somebody who's maybe thinking about becoming a teacher, but wants to be in a classroom to see, and that's the perfect person to come in and be an assistant in the classroom, and then maybe starts getting their training. And so when the inevitable comes and you lose a teacher, then you have someone in the pipeline that can kind of pick up and take their place. So I know that's what we do, or what my school used to do, so that it wasn't always a crisis when somebody left. And so you have people, you have to be thinking ahead 2 or 3 years all the time, and having people working in your school that maybe are in the midst of training, or are an assistant, or in another role that that can maybe step up if the need arises.
That's a valid point. I think we have done this. We have done exactly the same thing. We any assistant that looks like a good potential to become a teacher, or a parent who's highly interested, we always offer them, even if we don't have openings, we offer them a training opportunity paid by us. We do that. And I think we have had some success. Maybe we had 1 or 2 teachers who have actually, as a matter of fact, we are having one assistant who we have sent for elementary training. She's currently an assistant. So yes, that's a great way to do it, if you can find people who are willing to do that. And that quite often works.
Absolutely. It's always challenging. It's all about finding solutions, and having a backup plan, and then another like having an ABCD plan. Any more ideas to add when it comes to being creative with your recruitment? I'd love to hear if there's anything that's worked for your school or has been helpful. If anyone's had success on LinkedIn or any other social channels. Yes, Janet? Oh, I think you're muted.
Okay. I found when I ran the Montessori school, I'm actually semi-retired, but when I did one, and I'm still connected with the school, but I used to partner with a high school or two in the area, like Keeneland High School, where they had a career education program for high school kids, and they had an early childhood program there. So I would connect with Bob and bring the students over into the classroom on a tour. And we found that once they were in the Montessori school, because most people of that age have not experienced it, that you know, front end knowledge, kind of seeing the atmosphere, that helped us to, you know, hire 1 or 2 of them for the summer, and actually one of them now is there at the school. So I found it kind of opened the high schoolers' eyes to what the environment's like, because it is very different than a ordinary preschool. So I found that as a positive, to work closely with the high schools.
That's great. I think that's what's really going to help the shortage in the long term, is really inspiring those younger people who may not have been exposed to Montessori and welcome them into the classroom, because it's really hard not to fall in love with Montessori. And I think
Yes,
when you
it
come
is.
into the space and see it, especially at a young age, and you're inspired, you're like, I want to become a Montessori teacher. Maybe this is my path.
Mhm. I've
So
also found when you go and talk to some of the early childhood classes at the local high schools, which I did last year, even some of those students, like just showing them the different materials, the binomial cube, like a lot of them were saying, I don't know if I could do it. And you're asking a 3-year-old to do this? I mean, it's like, it's kind of a wow factor that this is really very interesting, and why you do what you do. And the added thing of how to talk to children. I said, being in a Montessori environment too is probably the best thing in the world for you in becoming a parent someday, because you learn so much about how to look at things through the eyes of children. So I found that helpful too.
that's great.
Following Janet's recommendation, what we do at our school is we look for like high school seniors and try to get them to come and work during summer camps.
Mhm.
A good idea.
Because that's, I mean, and quite often typically we have shortage of people working in summer camp anyway. So, I mean, we have done that. At least we can find a couple of people who are interested in working summer camp. Just give them a first-hand exposure to a general Montessori environment. And sometimes, I mean, we have been doing it like not for too long. So, I mean, we haven't had any takers yet, but that's always the potential.
Also,
That's
another
great.
thing is it not a bad idea, depending on the length of time your school's been open, but we've tapped actual past alumni graduates, and we actually right now have 2 hired who actually went to Monzio to school, who are in train, who are assistants, hopefully will be fully credentialed, but they're not, they're only there a year or 2, but they're probably, I mean, they know it because they've been in it. So it's really a nice blend. If you can look back to alumni and somebody's out of a job, maybe they think about coming, I don't know.
Absolutely. Get them on the Montessori alumni to teacher pipeline. That was me. I was a Montessori kid and then I became an assistant, and it's really hard not to love Montessori if that's what you've been exposed to. So I think that's great. Definitely keep in touch with your alumni, especially if you're a school that has older children. That's a little bit easier, but absolutely.
And also, I was just going to point out too, just like you reached out to high schools, if there's a local college in your area with a education offering, education degrees and everything, just connect with that college. Because I know we also had college students that they needed to spend a week or something in some sort of an educational environment for a practical assignment. And so if, just connect with the college and let them know, like, you're very open to this. And I'm sure you would get some people, some young students who are a little further along in their education than high schoolers, that you could similarly try to entice into becoming Montessori teachers.
Absolutely. I guess the next step in the recruiting process is really creating captivating job descriptions. We leaned into this a little bit at the start, but it's really important to do your research when it comes to writing good job descriptions. And again, leading with the benefits. I think that's really the key, is leading with what is great about working there and why should somebody want to work with you. I recommend taking a look at other job descriptions that are similar in the Montessori space. How can you improve on them? How can you make yours sound a little bit more enticing? Ask for advice in Montessori communities or forums. Definitely all of those that were listed in the chat are great. It's great to ask fellow Montessorians for inspiration. I think that's ultimately the best part of being in a Montessori community, is we're willing to share. And also check out our resource exchange. I made a list at the end of the presentation of all sorts of staffing and recruiting resources that we have available on Montessori Thrive. You can always request something. We have all kinds of things, from a recruitment guide to a list of different areas where that you can find or you can advertise jobs, groups to join, templates, interview guides, all of that. So if you need help with that, we have those resources. Again, lead with those benefits. You want to make sure to be clear and concise. Avoid too much. Don't make your job seem overwhelming and intimidating. It's almost like you want a couple of underqualified people to apply, because then you can really sense out their character during the interview process and see if maybe that person has long-term potential. You don't want to make your job description so intimidating and lengthy that someone's like, there's no way I'm qualified for this. So almost invite people who may not be your ideal candidate on paper, but might have the personality and character to really thrive in your community to apply. Use a friendly tone. Sometimes a sense of humor is welcome. You know, and again, just lead with those benefits, include how to apply, and make it easy. You don't want to add a lot of loopholes. Don't ask someone to fill out a questionnaire just to apply. And I also mentioned here, include a link to your website. Absolutely. You want people to see what you're all about and take a little peek. Next is having a good hiring plan in place. And the reason for this is a lot of first impressions are made during the hiring process, both on your end and on the candidate's end. So if they're sensing out some red flags, they're going to go with another job. So let's try to avoid that and have a good plan in place to make sure the candidates feel welcome and they feel like, yep, this is a click for me. I feel the chemistry between me and this job role in this community. Keep it simple. I cannot overstate this enough. There are so many job opportunities nowadays that they require you to do projects or a lot of drawn out, steps in order to even be considered for a role. And you want to find a happy medium. You don't want to just rush into it and hire the first person who walks through your door, but you also don't want to have a hiring process that takes, 2 months, because, time is money, and these people who are applying for jobs is because they need to earn a living. So you want to make sure to be respectful of their time and make things clear, organized, concise. Don't overcomplicate it. Developing a good hiring plan is important too. You want to make sure how many interviews you're going to have for each role. Obviously, maybe for an assistant, it requires less screening than somebody who's going to be taking a much higher up position, maybe an administrative role or a leading teacher. Is observation going to be a part of your hiring process? If so, make sure that they're able to take that time to come and observe. I recommend, if you can, if it's a candidate you're really serious about and you're getting to that phase in the hiring plan, to offer some payment for their time, because that's really going to inspire them to come in, if that's a possibility. Is there a written element to your hiring process? Do you want someone to fill in a questionnaire? Do you want them to write an essay about what education is to you? You can decide this on your own, but you want to be able to notify them early on. Create checklists. This is obviously once you've already shaken their hand and you've hired them. What's the next step after that? You want to have a very easy, simple checklist. CPR tests, where can they get one if they don't already have one? Background checks, where can they get that? What date is that due by? And have a very clear onboarding process so that each new hire feels eased to their new role. So you want to make sure that every step of the way, from the initial interview all the way to shaking their hand and welcoming them into your community, is clear and concise. Any questions or comments on this? I feel like most schools have this part down. It's usually the recruiting that's the challenging bit. When it comes to interviewing, I just want to make a point to say that the candidates are interviewing you just as much as you're interviewing them in that process. They are getting a feel for the tone of the conversation, the real expectations of the role, personality. So much is being considered on both ends. You want to make sure to review their resume in advance and make notes and questions about their experience or qualifications. Focus a lot on their responses and their being. I think that's important. Write down your list of interview questions, have those ready to go, have documentation on hand about your school. This is great if you have some type of staff handbook or any type of FAQs about working in the Montessori space. You can have that ready to hand out to them so they can view it. Be sure to give that candidate a very clear expectation about coming on time to the interview. Of course, it's always a bad sign if someone shows up late. Confirm that all of those key decision makers are available to participate in the interview. So anyone who's going to be pulling the trigger on hiring, that person is there to listen. And be sure you can have an environment to conduct the interview, whether that's in Zoom or in person. You want to make sure that it's a nice environment that you're setting. Next is onboarding, and onboarding plays a huge role in retention. So that's why I wanted to dive into it, because once we hire staff, we want to make sure that they stay on board. So we don't have to go through all of the stress of the recruiting process over and over again, year upon year, because that can get really stressful and time consuming, especially for us administrators. So a couple things that you can do to really improve your onboarding process is to have a new hire document checklist. So all of those things that they're going to need once they're hired, very clearly and concisely for them printed whenever they sign that contract. Have your employee fill out a goal setting document. It can be something really short and sweet, and you can revisit it after maybe the first 3 months and see how they're feeling in their role, where they need more support, what challenges they're facing, and if they've achieved some of their goals. And it could be things like small things like meeting all of the parents to, getting comfortable in an environment, or, having handled, one meltdown in the classroom really well. All of these things are, fun goals to set. Observation, you really want to focus on explaining how important observation is. This is more maybe for an assistant who may not know. A teacher should know how important observation is. And give them that time to observe what your specific community is like. Every Montessori is a little bit different while our values are the same. It's important to get them in the rhythm and make sure that they fit in well with the rest of your team. Introduce them to everyone in the staff and make sure that they feel welcome. People are a lot less likely to leave a job if they feel safe, if they feel that they're part of a team, part of something bigger. If somebody comes into a job and they don't feel welcome by the community, or they haven't been properly introduced, it's much easier for them to walk out if things start going south. So if there's a network there that works together through difficult times or any kind of challenges that may arise, it's going to help you with retention. Let them know where they can go when they need support. Do you have an open door policy when it comes to, if they have any questions they want to raise or issues? All of this can be helpful. And really walk them through the employee handbook. Have a really well-written employee handbook, something that's lists everything that they would need, and give them a proper orientation. Oftentimes we get so busy that it becomes hard to do these things, but it's really important if you want to keep them on your team. I think if you push this off to the side, what happens is the second that something gets hard or there's challenges that arise in the workplace, which we're in a school, we're working with children that can be sometimes unpredictable. You want to make sure that they know that they have a support system and they know what to do in a situation that's a little bit challenging. Anything to add? Is there anything that you do to onboard new staff that has been great? Also things like once they're settled, saying like, oh, new employee, you can post about it on your socials or post about it on your school website. Whenever you can say, oh, our latest hire, welcome to the team, or send out in a newsletter. That's another way to make someone feel welcome. All right, that was my question. Thinking long-term for retention, just some additional tips to keeping staff longer. It's really important to have strategies in place, both when you're onboarding and then afterwards, to make sure that your staff is happy and they feel valued in their workplace and they feel like they're a part of something bigger. So really being well prepared for the worst is kind of important when it comes to retention. We know after years of experience in Montessori why people leave the space. It can be things like personal life. Maybe somebody has children and they have to leave because they just don't have the bandwidth to do family and work, or something has happened that has not allowed them to continue working. Things like burnout are becoming increasingly common in the education world. Frustration with the role, if they're having challenges with other people in the workplace or a parent, they're going to need that support. And again, just not enough support for teachers. So how can we support our staff? Well, a great solution is to have a big roster of subs and floaters available. This is important because whenever that burnout does happen, which I don't think I've ever come across a teacher who has never experienced burnout at one point or another. I think it's important to have empathy and you know, say if you need a day off, or if you're having a hard week, if something has happened in your personal life, we have someone who can step in, and your job will be here when you come back and you're ready to, you know, continue. Those things are really important. And especially, I think the younger generation of workers really value this work-life balance and having that option available. Make sure that there's support in place. Make sure that all of the assistants that you take on are great and are there for the teachers, and that they really know how to work together. You know, invest in some team building activities if possible. Things like having regular check-ins. Also, manage your time well. Don't keep staff longer than necessary, and be flexible where possible. Again, we can't have a flexible remote working schedule in Montessori, but if something can be an email instead of a meeting, do it that way and let people, you know, have their space after work. This is going to help prevent burnout. These are the steps that, you know, what can we limit and what can, you know, if the doors of the school close at 4, we should let teachers, you know, be able to leave, and everything else should be dealt with within working hours. Or maybe we have one time a month that we all meet and we discuss everything that's important. If something is really, really urgent, we can always call them in during the school day and have a meeting with them and send someone in the classroom to look after the kids. So those little things about managing time, and consider things like mental health days. Maybe you're not in a position where you can offer a 4-day school week, but you can maybe offer, for people who have been at your community for a certain amount of time, one day of every month, you know, they can take a breather and they can recharge, and that can be a day of rest, and you can have a floater in to make sure everything is running smoothly at the school. Just something to think about. Of course, all of this will take planning and strategy, but you can see what works for your community. These are some approaches that other schools have implemented and have worked. I'd love to hear.
Yeah, sorry, I was just gonna say, did you see Aurora's question here in the chat?
Oh, no, I haven't.
I was looking at something else, and the normal amount of interviews for an assistant. Did you didn't chat about that? I know it depends if in my experience anyway, if they can meet with all the important people in one day, in one interview, then that was probably adequate. But it's obviously very important for them to meet with whatever teacher or whatever guide they're going to be assisting, because that's such a close relationship that, you know, you really have to get that right. And then, you know, the head of school and any other admins that might be important to weigh in on the decision. That would be my input. Anybody else have ideas or thoughts about that?
When we did it, it was one initial interview that we asked all of the questions and qualifications. We invited them in for observation, and then we would have an interview afterwards to hear their thoughts, hear what they saw, and we would list out again the expectations. So it was a total of 3, really, even though the observation wasn't necessarily an interview, so it was kind of a sandwich. And then we would decide on the candidate after that, and then there would be more observation periods once we've hired them before they fully started. I don't know if that helps.
Yes, thank you. We do a similar thing. We have an initial interview, then we invite them to come and observe the classroom. Then they have a meeting following. And I also invite all the teachers, all the leads and assistants, if possible, in that time to meet with this new candidate and ask questions. So that this way we have more of a group sense of the person. And then if they're hired, then they come and they do a 1 week of orientation and training. But thank you so much.
That's great. Yeah, and every school is going to have, you know, their unique way of doing it, but I definitely think that observation should be implemented there. I think it's just such a big part of what it's like to work in Montessori that I think that's important.
Yeah. I'm going back on the talking about giving staff a day off. I know in the past, we've tried to help with that work-life balance with one staff lead person having Monday off, another one having Friday off, another one having Monday off, so that at least every week in the summer, there's really an extra day there that I know they've really appreciated that. And the other thing, staff meetings, I've always found it's always nice to break bread together. We always have a meal, and that's kind of our connection to our circle of friends and the teachers. So we talk about nothing related to school for a few minutes, which is really nice. Then we get into the meat of it, but it just draws people in. We find out a little bit what's happening, not in everybody's life, but get a pulse on it. So, I mean, I think that can be helpful to build a community for teachers.
Absolutely. I love the idea of having a meal, whether it's breakfast, lunch, all together, and having that time to talk about things that aren't work related is important, because again, it's harder to walk away from a supportive community where you feel like you're a part of something. Absolutely.
There's also some discussion here around the 4-day week.
I know public schools are implementing it in certain areas because there's such huge shortages in the public school system as well. I don't know. The thing is that it's difficult because some parents need those full 5 days. So I think we're going to see that change in the future. I don't know. I read too many articles and get excited about the world moving towards a 4-day work week, but I think that that's probably a couple years away. But you can maybe offer that to certain staff members. I think it's maybe your school is open 5 days a week so that you can service your families, but you're more flexible with your staff. So maybe your staff doesn't work 5 days a week. Maybe you have someone who works half the week and someone else who works the other half of the week, or you can find a balance that makes sense for your classrooms. Are there any schools in here who are doing a 4-day work week? I'm interested to know. I mean, a school week.
Camila, the problem with having basically having staff work 4 days a week than 5 days a week is that they still want the salary of 5 days working 5 days a week. So you have to now, on top of that, have additional resources, and that puts a lot of pressure on the school budget.
Yeah, it's going to be an adjustment for sure. I think it might be a solution for some schools, not for every school. So if it's something that, isn't feasible, then find other ways to implement a bit of more flexibility in your school. But yeah, that completely makes sense. It depends, some communities I think will find a way around it. Maybe some people are willing to earn a little bit less if it means that they have a better work-life balance. Maybe they're, parents and they want to be able to still stay in the workforce, but they want to have that 3-day weekend because that gives them a chance to recharge and be with their kids. And they're willing to work for a couple thousand less a year than someone who's working 5 days a week. So you may have candidates out there who are willing to. I know the younger generation has a different perspective on this, but it's challenging because there is a cost of living crisis, if you'll call it, at this point in time. So it's challenging. You still want to be able to offer employees those competitive salaries where possible. Another way to retain staff long-term is to create opportunities to make them really feel valued, offer them raises when possible. This is huge, especially nowadays when I feel like grocery bills go up day upon day and everyone's feeling it. People want to make sure that their work is valued. So, offer something that's sustainable and if necessary, I know schools that are raising their tuition year upon year. All of this is important to make sure that all of your staff is well compensated if you're a nonprofit school. Offer training. I know many schools are required to do this, especially if you're AMI, AMS, you might have to offer certain training annually. Create opportunities for career development. So you should, if someone is starting on assistant but wants to be a guide, have a clear path for them. Say, we would love for you to be a guide at some point in the future. We're happy to help you on that journey and create opportunities for you here. And offer incentives such as more PTO and other perks. I know many schools, the longer a guide has been with you, the more PTO they have every year. So all of those can be, a couple of opportunities to make your staff feel valued. Anything else to add to that? Any other perks that you offer? Another thing is just to reward your staff. This goes very much hand in hand. Staff are much less likely to leave a happy, healthy community. It's just like Janet said, things like, having lunch, having meals together, chatting, all of those are important. Encouraging healthy and safe communication standards. It's important to go through with your staff, how do we talk to one another in the school? Encourage a healthy workplace. You don't want to be in a toxic and gossipy and stressful work environment. You want to be able to lean on each other as a team of educators. Create space for connection, just like Janet said with her lunches. Maybe you have an annual staff dinner to celebrate everyone's hard work for the year. All of these things really, they make people feel special. Point out your employees' achievement. Maybe you have a meeting with everyone at the end of the year to say, wow, I've really noticed that this year you've done so much better here, here, and here. We're really, happy to have someone who is growing so much here. And, just recognize those growths and offer perks where possible. I think that those things make people feel valued. Here are some resources we have to recruit, retain, and hire staff. This is all stuff from our Montessori Thrive collection. We have a whole section on staffing, so I highly recommend you do that if you can log on to Montessori Thrive. We also have a couple of YouTube videos on staffing. This will go up on our YouTube channel as well. So if you want to look at it for notes later on, we have things like sample job descriptions. We have our forum where you can ask other Montessori schools for help. We have a recruitment guide. We have all sorts of resources now for staffing. So if you're looking for some help, we definitely recommend you take a look there. I'll open it up for discussion now. I just wanted to also point out that we're currently having our Montessori Thrive parenting series. We just had our first meeting yesterday, and we're having our next one on Wednesday with Kristen Anchor. So if you're a Montessori Thrive member school and you want your parents to join these calls, it's free for parents. They can log on to Zoom. We're live every Wednesday from 8 to 9 p.m. Eastern with a Montessori expert to answer questions on parenting. So we look forward to a month of parent education. I'll go ahead and stop sharing my screen so we can chat. I see here in the chat some things. What are working parents supposed to do with their children? This is my only concern about the model of 4 days a week. And this is the biggest reason why people, I think, are veering off that model. I think, realistically, people pay so that they can have their children while they work. So until everyone's job becomes 4 days a week, it'll be challenging to offer that fully. Victoria says here, we run 4-day weeks during the 6-week of summer program. Okay, it's a good way to test out how that works as well. It's also more flexible time. One of our public districts is doing 4 days a week. Yep, it's probably going to happen more and more. We have been sharing this with our families. Maybe when they feel the pressure that the public schools are doing it, they won't be so outraged. Our Friday enrollment really drops in the summer, so we've had no complaints. Okay.
When you
can
said
implement it slowly.
Sorry, when you said you've been sharing this with your families, did you mean the parenting series? Or, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh, thank you. That's great.
I thought you said that you were sharing with about the 4-day work week in public schools to make them be like, oh, other schools are doing that, so we might do that.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments when it comes to staffing? I know it's a challenge. I definitely recommend just finding support in the groups where you can. So you're definitely not alone.
But we have noticed it seems to be easing a little bit. I think, it's not quite as bad as it was, after the upheaval of COVID, like say even from a year ago. So hopefully things are trending in a positive direction. So
we had a very similar meeting last year to this, and it was dire back then. People were very desperate. I feel like now it's still a challenge, but not so much like it was last year. So hopefully that will be the trend, a positive trend.
Another idea just on staffing and building that sense of community that we found, and that actually brought up by staff members after COVID. We were so isolated, but coming back, each of our staff members took a Friday and they had something special that they cooked for the staff on every Friday was like happy it's Friday day kind of thing. But each one participated in that, and it was really very nice that we've continued it. And it's you know, it's nothing big, but it's just somebody has done something for the group, and that just kind of builds community, talking about it and whatever, taking a picture of it and letting all the staff know it's there. And so just another idea.
Absolutely. No, I really enjoyed your ideas, Jen. And I think it's so important to have connectivity in the workspace. I think that's what's really going to help long-term with retention. And people, especially I think in the education space, really just want community. That's why we become educators. We want to uphold communities. So it's important. I'm dropping my email here. So if anyone ever has any ideas or requests for future town hall topics, please feel free to reach out to me. I very much plan these around, you know, what Montessori leaders want to discuss. Next week, we're going to be focusing on parenting resources. So different types of parenting resources and strategies to support your families, because that's a way to keep them retained in your schools. So if you're interested in that, what kind of resources you can offer, different styles of parenting courses and things like that, please feel free to join next week's meeting. These are always free to join, so feel free to give us a shout out and invite other Montessori leaders. Zira, thank you. I'll be more international with colleges and high schools, and intentional with colleges and high schools in the area. And I love that one day a month, a quarter time off, one Friday off each session. Yep. Laura's asking here, what day?
But
what was
regarding the parenting series or next week parent class?
So the parenting class is on Wednesday evening, from 8 to 9 p.m. Eastern on Zoom. And then these town halls are always at the same time and day. So they're always Thursday from 1:30 to 2:30 p.m. Eastern.
I think Laura just popped into the meeting just now, so I think she missed when we talked about that before. But
Oh, okay.
So it's open to, if you're a member of Thrive, then
I can put the link here to
are you a member of Thrive, Laura? Because okay, so the parenting series is offered to our members. So we can maybe you can drop the link to Montessori Thrive.
This is the link that just outlines the actual parenting event, and then it'll say at the top it's open to Thrive member schools, and it'll have a link if you're interested in signing up. But yeah, we're just in the midst of it now. We host them every October and every February so that parents can join in. Oh, you were here earlier than also, this recording will be posted on our YouTube channel. So if you missed anything, you can always watch the recording back at the Nido Marketing YouTube channel. They're always posted publicly, so you can access them whenever. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. And like I said, if you have any questions that pop in your mind or any future ideas for town halls, feel free to shoot me an email. It was, I think, a great meeting. So thank you so much for joining and sharing your ideas. We really appreciate it. And we'll see you next week for another town hall. Until then, take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.